ND filters are a must-have piece of kit for any video creator. Got to have them. But nobody likes fiddling around with filters during a shoot. So you should just buy a nice variable ND filter kit and you're golden, right? Well, actually, even high-quality variable NDs can ruin your image in ways that are almost impossible to fix in post. We're talking really weird-looking stuff. And it all has to do with unexpected effects of polarization. Let me explain. There are 3 different kinds of ND filters based on how they work. The first kind are the fixed-strength ND filters. These are just pieces of optical glass with metallic coatings on them that reflect or absorb light evenly. They can go inside a matte box, screw onto a lens, or even go inside the camera. But regardless of shape and size, they work by just cutting down the light by a fixed amount of stops. So to change the strength of ND, you need to swap out the whole filter. And that's where variable NDs come in. VNDs work quite a bit differently to traditional NDs. They consist of 2 polarizing filters, stacked one on top of the other. Rotating the front layer allows you to gradually control the density of the filter. But there is a catch. These are not ND filters, but polarizers. They change the image in subtle ways, which makes them unreliable in certain conditions. But hold that thought for now, because I will explain polarization in a sec. Lastly, there are electronic NDs. Electronic NDs are liquid crystal screens. That screen changes its opacity in response to the electrical current it receives. It's a fully electronic system, and as such they can be controlled by the camera, unlocking a number of functions that no other filter can do. I will compare all 3 types of filters and give you pros and cons for each later in the video. But for now, let's focus on the variable ND filter, because out of all 3 filter types, that's the only one that relies on polarization to function. But what is polarization and what's so bad about it? Well, a polarizing filter works like Venetian blinds. It only allows light to pass through at a certain angle. You see, most natural light sources, like the sun, emit light waves that oscillate or vibrate in all directions perpendicular to the beam. This is unpolarized light. But when that light reflects off a shiny surface like water or car paint, some of it becomes polarized, meaning all of its waves are now vibrating in a single plane, usually horizontal. Incidentally, that's the type of light blocked by your expensive sunglasses. They block horizontal reflections from cars and water and roads while letting the vertical waves come through. That's what a polarizing filter does. It only lets through light from one angle or plane. The rest is blocked. So how a variable ND filter works is by stacking 2 stages of those Venetian blinds. The first stage polarizes all the incoming light into one plane, and as you rotate the second stage, it blocks more or less of that polarized light coming in from the first stage. The more these 2 stages are out of alignment, the more light gets blocked, and that's what gives you that variable control of exposure. Pretty neat, huh? But polarizing filters have an inherent downside. They don't block all light evenly like traditional NDs. Instead, they block it selectively, depending on the angle the light is coming from. That's just how polarization works, and with variable NDs you get it whether you want it or not. Most times you don't even notice it, but in certain conditions it can lead to unexpected artifacts. Simply put, a variable ND can ruin your picture. And I'm not talking about some uniform color cast that you can easily fix in the grade. I'm talking about things in camera looking vastly different to what you saw with your naked eye. And that has nothing to do with the quality of the filter. That's just physics of light. But when and why does it happen? Let's investigate. The most severe problems arise when you are dealing with light that's already been polarized. This happens all the time with LCD and LED screens. Today, the vast majority of screens in gadgets, TVs and cars and what have you emit light that's already polarized. And that's just a part of the display technology. So when you look at these screens through a polarizing filter, it cancels out the polarized light coming from the screen, which may cause the screen to appear dark, patchy, rainbow-like, or even totally black. It all depends on the angle the light is coming from. You've probably noticed it yourself when looking at your phone through polarized sunglasses. At certain angles, the screen suddenly goes almost completely black. Similar things can happen to windows and glass walls. Tempered or laminated glass like car windows, office glass walls or shop fronts often contain internal stress patterns or special coatings. This causes the glass to subtly refract and polarize the light inside its structure. It looks normal to your eye, but the polarizing filter reveals the hidden differences. These stress patterns and coatings become visible as rainbow-like artifacts and blotches of color. The kind of stuff you don't see with your naked eye. And this can trip you up, because you never know when these artifacts are going to become visible. Imagine setting up an interview shot in front of a tempered glass window and all you have on hand is a variable ND. Not a good place to be in. These are more extreme cases, but there are also more subtle ways in which polarization affects the image. Reflections and glare often wash out colors, so removing them with a polarizer reveals the more vibrant tones underneath. You can get deeper blues in the sky or richer greens in the foliage. And that's why landscape photographers love their polarizers. Everything just pops more. But that's not so great for portraiture, since skin is also a bit reflective. Some filtration might be desirable, for example to reduce glare, but if overpolarized, skin can lose a lot of its natural shine and start to look weird and plasticky. And again, with variable ND filters you don't get to choose. You get polarization whether you asked for it or not. Another problematic area for polarization is using wide-angle lenses. We're talking wider than 20mm on full frame. With a lens like that, the angle that the light is coming from varies greatly across the frame. So the polarization effect also varies across the frame, with the largest shifts being seen in the corners. This problem is made worse by filter stacking. For example, when using a camera with an internal electronic ND in conjunction with a polarizer or a variable ND. If END is set to high and you are using a wide-angle lens with a polarizer on it, you might start seeing weird color shifts in the corner of the image. Again, the fault lies not with the filters themselves, but just with the way that light physics work. And you need to know and expect these problems before you get caught off guard on location or even worse, in post. So after all that, you might think to stay away from variable ND filters for good. But it's actually not that big of a deal. I've been using this high-quality magnetic VND kit from Freewell for years. And it's only recently, when I started doing way more product shooting, I started to encounter problems with polarization. But once you understand the basic science behind it, you can always choose the right filter for the job. So let's go back to the three types of ND filters. All three of them cut the amount of light that hits the camera, but they do it in different ways. Ways that trade off accuracy for convenience. The fixed strength NDs are the most accurate ones. If you get a high quality kit like these Freewell M2s here, you won't have to worry about color accuracy, provided you white balance the camera properly, of course. But this type of filters is the slowest to work with by far. Magnetic quick snap attachment helps a lot, but still, to control the strength of ND, you need to swap out the whole filter. This is fine for a control setup in a studio-based workflow, but for more run-and-gun documentary-style productions, this can be a deal-breaker. Variable ND filters are very convenient, as they allow you to adjust exposure on the fly. This lets you keep a consistent aperture in changing light conditions, super handy for run-and-gun. But the polarization issues we discussed earlier make them unreliable in terms of color accuracy. This might not be such a huge issue if you are filming in a natural environment. But if there are screens, windows and other reflective surfaces in your frame, consider going with an alternative ND solution. The electronic NDs are the kings of convenience. They are usually built into the camera or a lens adapter, making them lens independent. You don't have to screw anything on or off or fiddle with the matte box. And this makes your lens swaps much quicker. Electronic NDs also let you do things no other filter can do. Things like auto exposure, allowing you to do depth of field pulls and smooth transitions from indoors to outdoors. In terms of color reproduction, they don't suffer from polarization issues because there isn't any. But unfortunately, they are not as color neutral as fixed strength NDs. They introduce a pretty heavy but uniform color tint, green or magenta. The camera then compensates for it with a dynamic white balance adjustment. But that's just the inherent downside of the LCD technology. And this is why you won't find electronic NDs built into high-end cameras such as Alexa or Venice. As you can see, there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to ND filters. As a matter of fact, I use all three types in different situations. I bought this magnetic VND kit from Freewell years ago, and I found it to be the best bang-for-buck option on the market. But recently they reached out to me to test out these Mark II versions. And I have to say I was impressed by these smart changes that they made. The filters attach much more securely now thanks to stronger magnets and these recessed grooves inside the rings. So now the filter or the cap won't just slide off by accident like it often happened on Mark I. At the same time, it's much easier to take the cap off using this foldable ring, even with these stronger magnets. And the cap never takes the filter off with it, which was something I was worried about. The carrying case is much improved as well. This wallet-style design is just so much better than the previous slide-out system. I also like how clean and understated these filters look. I don't need autographs and brightly colored golden rings on my filters. So overall, I think these Mark II magnetic filter kits are great, and I can wholeheartedly recommend them. My affiliate link is in the description below, and I appreciate that extra support from you guys. The kits are available in both fixed and variable options, whichever suits your needs best. Speaking of which, let's sum up what we've learned in this video. Here are my recommendations for what type of ND filter to use for which situation. Variable ND filters are great for run-and-gun shooting that is biased towards outdoors locations. There's much less chance of running into undesired polarization effects out there in the wild. If you have a camera with built-in electronic ND, you're golden. You're pretty much covered for any situation. But if you are shooting corporate content where there's a lot of glass, screens, or any kind of product photography, I would rely solely on high-quality fixed-strength NDs. These are the only kinds of filters you will find on a proper film set for that very reason. Oh, and no matter what type of filter you use, don't forget to custom white balance your camera each time you change the filter. Thanks for watching.